and welcome to the C-Team. I'm Mike Curley.
And this is Frank Curley.
And today we're doing our I guess it's kind of late to do what's coming up in 2018. We're a month in, but we get off to a slow start on things.
Yeah, and it's only beginning of February. I mean, there's still a lot to come out.
Yeah, so let's get right into it, starting with video games. I think we're mainly talking about a lot of Switch stuff.
Yeah.
This time, because that's the one we don't own. Do you own a PlayStation 4?
Actually, yes.
Oh,
at this point,
I don't own a PlayStation 4, and I can only borrow his Switch. So you take it away. This first one is one of your favorites.
Okay, so the first Fire Emblem to come out on a console since 2008 with Radiant Dawn. Right now, it's just a working title. I mean, we could probably assume, a lot of things. It'll be, turn-based.
That would be a real departure for the series.
Yeah. Turn-based strategy, what we've grown to like.
You think it'll retread any previous ground or bring all new characters?
Well, that's a good question. Because, let's see, I'm trying to think of... Because, a lot of the worlds are basically resolved. Mm-hmm. Like, you had Awakening, which takes place, 1,000 years after Marth's series, and then you had a series that took place 1,000 years before Marth's series. It's kind of a toss-up. They're kind of like Final Fantasy, though they more often come back to, like, the main world.
But for the most part, is it something where, for like each game, that's the one thing that main character's part of? It's not the next one, he comes back again? They take place different places on the timeline.
Rarely. Marth is the only one. Marth and Ike are the only two that have appeared in more than one title as a protagonist. So it could be a toss-up. I imagine they're going to do a whole other world, or at the very least, a whole different period of time.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see anyway what they can do with the Switch, whether they use the infrastructure of the Switch to do anything different. Like, it's only the one screen, but maybe two players with the two Joy-Cons, or I don't know what they could do. I'm not as familiar with the series to know what motion control could bring to it.
Nothing, really. I mean, motion control made sense in...
Zelda.
Yeah, Zelda, because it's an action game. As a turn-based, I would personally prefer it would just stay plain turn-based. Don't try anything like funny with it or like quick time events myself. And actually, that was one of the pettier complaints of Radiant Dawn. It was on the Wii. It didn't use any motion controls.
Yeah, it doesn't make much sense for motion controls.
Yeah, the system...
If anything, the other screen... Oh, no, you said the Wii, not the Wii U.
Actually, it would work great with the Wii U, especially having played the series on the 3DS for 3 titles, having a map, a map and stats,
like in Hyrule Warriors.
Yeah, something like that. And that would make sense, but sadly, Nintendo's all but given up on the whole dual screen thing, which
that's a shame. It had potential to do interesting things,
especially with Monster Hunter. Being able to like open up the inventory on the screen below without having to cycle through menus, in real time. I always felt that was a nice touch, and I really hope they keep the 3DS going as long as possible or have a proper follow-up to it. I mean, it could go either or. So I wasn't really hopeful initially with Fire Emblem, especially, suffering through Fates, which, you've heard my complaints before. I'll go into more details once this game comes out. But... the remake of Gaiden has...
Is that for 2018 that's coming out?
Oh, no, that came out last year. Remember we discussed it?
Oh, that's right, yeah.
Yeah. Better character design, better costume design, just overall, just story-wise, just so much more superior. So I have my hopes up once again. Hopefully, they'll keep with that. Okay,
so... All right, so moving on to the series formerly known as Dragon Warrior.
Yeah.
Not the Kung Fu Panda. But, yes, Dragon Quest XI, Echoes of an Elusive Age. They really like the alliteration there.
Oh, you have no idea. Like, I've been playing through Dragon Quest IX. They use it every single chance they get.
There is a certain melodic quality to alliteration, and as a writer, I can't avoid it entirely. So anyway, this is going to be their first. No, not first. Nothing. The last game in the series, Dragon Quest X, was an MMO.
Yeah, and is it, like Fire Emblem, this will be the first time they're on a console in a while.
Yeah, well, because the last couple, 9 was on.
Well, 8 was on PS2. Then we have 9, which is strictly DS, and then 10, which was an MMO. So it isn't quite a proper Dragon Quest.
So this is almost like Final Fantasy going back to the single player games after 11.
Right. So it looks like,
I was looking at some of the gameplay footage. It actually looks like a lot like the previous ones, which I think has to do a lot with Akira Toriyama's artwork.
Oh yeah.
Where it's going to look kind of the same, whether you're talking about the PlayStation 2 or the PlayStation 4, because it's just the stylized anime that transitions really well to stylized video games. It looked like, it looked kind of old school. I was looking at some of the gameplay. I kind of liked one touch I noticed. I was watching one of the battles in the prologue where the characters react to other characters getting hit.
Huh.
Where the party was the dog, the guy with the sword, and the girl, who I presume is a mage because she was casting a healing spell. And whenever the guy or the dog got hit, the girl was like looking concerned. And when the dog mauled the little slime, she started cheering for him. So I think that's just a nice little background detail touch.
Yeah, and I do like, as I mentioned before, I do like Akira Toriyama's artwork. Despite the fact that he has like 3 or 4 faces to his repertoire.
He has one face and bunches of different hairdos.
Yeah. Oh, and eyebrows. And the brows. Sometimes it's just really meaty for no reason.
Yeah.
And I always liked it because it can be goofy, but it's not so goofy that it can't take itself, seriously when it needs to. Like, Final Fantasy, I don't really care for the recent artwork.
The more realistic stuff?
Yeah, the more realistic stuff. Yeah. They kind of come across as supermodels. They don't really... They're not as lively, in my opinion. And, especially with, Chrono Trigger and, Dragon Quest 8, I play that game to death when it came out on 3DS. And,
so what do we know about Dragon Quest 11 then?
Well, that's going to be, exploring turn-based combat, basically what to expect.
It's kind of going back to classic Dragon Quest gameplay after the MMO.
Right. Which, well, in all fairness, they only let go of that for the MMO. Dragon Quest 9 is very traditional.
Yeah, Dragon Quest has been kind of a traditional style game for a long time, where Final Fantasy, they changed the system a little bit each time, moving more and more toward real time. And Final Fantasy pioneered having the characters on the right, villain on the left, where the standard before that was you just looked at the enemies. You didn't necessarily see your own player characters.
Yeah, and Dragon Quest, your characters didn't do any animations at all until 8. Because that was the first one that was in full 3D. 7, right before that was PS1 that used sprites. The remake, converts everything to 3D. So I'm looking forward to it. Once I finally get through Dragon Quest 9, it is a long game.
Well, yeah, Japanese RPGs, they tend to be.
Though the reputation for being really long is Dragon Quest 7. I read a review, and apparently, the whole class switching thing?
Yeah.
Dragon Quest 9 has it. It takes like a few hours to get there. In 7, it's 30.
Jeez. So
it is an absolute slow burn. I have him in my apartment. I'm going to get around to it. But yeah, I was warned that it takes a long time to get going.
Okay, so, Dragon Quest, Square, and Enix, they know what they're doing with RPGs. I'm pretty sure it's going to be, at the very least, a solidly put-together game.
Yeah.
So, Dragon Marked for Death by Intercreates kind of looks like they're a similar style to Azure Gunvolt and Mega Man Zero, Mega Man ZX, Mega Man ZXA, Mega Man Triple X, etc.
Yep.
With Vin Diesel.
Anyway, so yeah, it's by Intercreate. It was originally for the 3DS, but they decided to move it to the Switch. And it's been kind of more and more pushed. The release date has been more and more pushed back as it went. So it looks pretty good. Side-scrolling multiplayer. You pick a class. You have your bruiser, you have your witch, you have your ninja.
Yeah, I was looking at some of the gameplay. It seems like kind of your bog standard RPG classes, but you don't usually see them in a side-scroller, let alone like a local multiplayer side-scroller or online multiplayer.
The only one I've seen is a beat-em-up known as Dragon's Crown, which is specifically D&D based.
Yeah, but even then, I don't think there was like a healer in that. It was, that was more of a beat-em-up thing.
Yeah, it was, but
with exaggerated artwork.
Yeah,
just a little bit exaggerated.
Was it Dragon's? It was one by. Crown. No, I'm actually thinking of another. It's by Capcom.
Dragon's Dogma.
No. Capcom back in like the SNES days. It was another beat 'em up specifically based off of D&D.
I don't know. Let's move on. We're talking about the future, not the past.
Right.
So.
Well, I'm just describing.
Either way, the game looks fun, looks solid. Intercreates. They know their side scrollers, and it'll be interesting to see them do something with so many different gameplay styles. Because other games they've done, it's been jump and shoot man stuff. So having a party dynamic should open up a lot of different possibilities for getting through different areas and tackling the different challenges the game will have.
Okay. So, and without playing the game myself, there's all I really have to say about that. So, this already came out, but I'll discuss it anyway. Monster Hunter World, another one, first console game in a while since PS2. You see a pattern.
Yeah.
Going. And yeah, let's see. I first picked up Monster Hunter with 3 Ultimate, and the best way I can describe it is you're kind of like in your bat cave. You develop weapons and gadgets and potions and stuff like that, and then you go into what was basically a boxing match with the various monsters. Once you find it.
So, what's special about Monster Hunter World?
Well, a lot of specific things. Like, in previous games, you had the map divided in different sections so you can, like, escape easily, and so the monster can escape easily. All the maps are one plane, one area. So escaping won't be as easy this time. I believe there's also tracking, which Monster Hunter sort of had, but it never quite felt like a hunt to me, if that makes any sense.
It was more, okay, here's where the guy is, go get him. And now it's going to be look for the signs and find him.
Yeah, I mean, you did have to find him, but it's usually just running around until he spots you.
That's how it usually goes in these kinds of games.
But, well, you could throw like a paintball. You get a mask that specifically tells you where it is, but that's not really tracking a monster.
Yeah, so hopefully that's more robust. It sounds like it'll add an interesting wrinkle to it. Not just killing them, but finding them.
Yeah.
Because it's monster hunting by Cabela's, apparently.
Yeah.
So, all right, so we're kind of moving on to one. I'm not sure it's actually slated for 2018, but it's been revealed in pieces, the Final Fantasy VII Remake, which I'm excited for in the sense that Final Fantasy VII was one of my favorite games. It introduced me to RPGs, and I like the game. So I'm interested to see a remake. I have reservations about how it's going to be episodic. Yeah. Not because I don't think it'll be good quality, but let's look at episodic games and how they worked out. Half-Life 2, Episode 1, Episode 2, and...
Maybe 3?
Yeah, that's not coming out. It's 15 years. The game has been in development longer than its target audience has been alive at this point. So that's my one reservation, that it will drop off. The episodic content will not happen. In fairness, Square, they pulled it off with the After Years, but that was just technically speaking, that was an SNES game, essentially, released in episodes, as opposed to they're saying that each episode of Final Fantasy VII Remake is going to be the length of a full Final Fantasy game.
Yeah, which
it sounds overambitious.
Well, it kind of goes against the idea of an episode, because it's supposed to be shorter games with more frequent, releases.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to it. I hope it does well, but I have my reservations about it. The fact that we haven't heard anything about it in a while is not a good sign either.
Yeah.
They did have some gameplay, and it looks like they're changing up the system, so it's not as turn-based. It looks like there's when you play as Barrett, there's some over-the-shoulder shooting bits, and Cloud runs around like Raiden, slashing everything up. So it seems like they're kind of going with trying to make a game out of the action sequences and Advent Children, which is not necessarily bad, and that's what Dissidia largely did, and Dissidia and the later Kingdom Hearts games. And speaking of Dissidia, there is a PlayStation 4 version. I believe it's based on an arcade game that came out in Japan. It's Dissidia NT, and it's largely the same sort of brawler gameplay, except now it's 3-on-3. And you pick a team, and each member, they're changing up the gameplay a little bit, where each member has a particular role. So there's a specialist, or an assassin, or a bruiser, or a tank, and you have to mix and match and create a party. And they've also changed it up in that the original games on the PSP, Dissidia and Duodecim, they were about the conflict between the gods, Cosmos, goddess of order, and Chaos, goddess of... you know what? I totally forget. What could Chaos be?
Puppies.
That's right. Yes, he loves puppies. So this one actually takes place after the original games, and the characters remember not only the original Dissidia games, but the games they came from. Whereas in the original games, it was a whole thing with the story that as you got defeated, when you came back, you lost your memory. They played around a lot with this, where in Duodecim, Cloud is a bad guy at first because he doesn't remember, and it was a thing where the villains kept winning, so the villains remembered, but the heroes had no idea what was going on. So this one's interesting in that it's taking place after all of that, and there's a new set of gods. There's 2 new gods, not of order and chaos. I forget exactly what they are, but they're 2 new characters that have once again called all the heroes and villains to beat the crap out of each other. And it's all the characters from the original game, Duodecim, and some new ones. Ramza from Final Fantasy Tactics in it, and he has a nose this time. That was the reveal, kind of, because they first showed the character from the neck down, and then like the reveal trailer was just like moving the camera up an inch to him having a nose, because the original artwork for that game did not have noses.
Yeah.
So Ramza has a nose. What will they think of next?
Okay, so Mega Man.
Mega Man 11, yes, which didn't know they were going to... I wasn't expecting them to do anything for the 30th anniversary, and technically the 30th anniversary is already over. But they did announce Mega Man 11 with a gameplay trailer, and it looks like it's going to be good, as far as you can tell. I mean, Mega Man is pretty basic gameplay. It's hard to screw it up, although it has been done.
Yeah, it has been.
But I like the little touches. I like the graphics. I like that it's not a remake. It's not a re-release. And I like the touches, like Mega Man changes his shape a little bit when he uses the Robot Master powers now, instead of just the color, which I think I've mentioned before is something they planned for the original games, but the NES just couldn't handle that.
Well, it doesn't give much excuse for like the PS1 and the SNES game. Like, other than changing colors?
Well, yeah, but by then it was part of the tradition.
Yeah.
So, and by then it was a trademark of the system, so they've had a break, quote unquote, that I could rant about, but I won't.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, Mega Man 11, that's what I'm really looking forward to. It's going to be on all the major systems, so I guess I have to get one. And another one that's on the Switch that I know it's out already, but I haven't gotten it yet. And if Frank can talk about Monster Hunter World, which he already actually has, I'm going to talk about Xenoblade Chronicles 2. Xenoblade Chronicles was one of my favorite games on the Wii. I bought it to support Project Waterfall, which was Was it Waterfall?
Well, I don't know.
Yeah. I think it was Waterfall. I'll correct it in the show notes or something. It was an effort to get more attention for Wii RPGs. There were 3 of them: Pandora's Tower, The Last Story, and Xenoblade, which is called... It was originally just Xenoblade, then Xenoblade Chronicles in the US. And I picked it up to support that, and it turned out to be just a fantastic game. Huge game world, great voice acting. System took a little getting used to, but it was just a very well put together game with a lot of attention to detail, a lot of really nice humor to it. So I've been playing Xenoblade Chronicles X, and Xenoblade Chronicles 2 is almost more of a spiritual successor in the sense that it's not the same world. It's the same kind of premise where the world takes place on these giant titans, like bodies of creatures. Like in the original Xenoblade Chronicles, there was an area that was just the leg. You were on the leg, and everything was this is the leg rabbit, or its head, its shoulders, and
one was wasn't one like a dismembered arm?
Yeah, that was the dismembered
cool.
arm of one of the Titans that was down on the ground because it got cut off in the opening cutscene. And what really threw me was they keep making reference to a place called Sword Valley, where I thought it was just like a generic fantasy type name for a battlefield. No, it's literally one of their swords, which is sticking into one of the other guys. So I really want to play Xenoblade Chronicles 2. I have to get a Switch for it. So I'm going to try and scrounge up some money for that. And so, wish list for 2018, if we could have a game, what would we want?
Well, since they announced and then released remakes of Fire Emblem and Metroid games completely out of the blue, I'm hoping they're working on Adventures of Link as we speak. Nintendo.
That would be interesting, yeah, because Adventure of Link is kind of it's not really the popular Zelda game. The later games take elements from it. The sages in Ocarina come from the names of the towns, using magic, and that there are towns to go to, all originated with that game. So it'd be interesting to see how they do it as a remake, whether they would do it still 2D, or maybe you could also argue that Breath of the Wild is almost kind of like a remake of it, more on the exploration in Breath of the Wild than there really was in Adventure of Link, but it's similar in that it's kind of a mix between 1 and 2.
Yeah, and I'm hoping, since the 2 remakes they did, they did last year were the big time odd ducks, and so it feels a little odd that Zelda would be kind of ignored in that lineup.
In fairness, Zelda has kind of had more consistency in just getting new games out.
True.
Whereas Metroid has not. Metroid, after Mother M. After Other M, they kind of dropped off. They had a couple little side games like Federation Force, Hunters, and Pinball. So, and speaking of Metroid, they announced along with Samus Returns, Metroid Prime 4. We've seen nothing of it except for the logo, but the Metroid Prime 1, 2, and 3 were all fantastic games, and I have high hopes for that one.
Is it by Retro Studios? Do you know?
No, but one of the head designers on it is from Retro Studios, and Retro Studios doesn't really exist anymore, so the smart money is that this team is made up of the former Retro Studios crew.
Where do you think it will fall in the timeline?
I would think after Prime 3, I would like to see a game set after Fusion. I don't think that's going to happen. But I don't know. I hope it follows up on the secret ending of Prime 3, where you see one of the Hunter's ships coming out of hyperspace right behind Samus. So I would want to see more exploration and expansion of the world outside of the death worlds that she blows up.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe something like Breath of the Wild. Since there are elements, from Metroid Prime that are in that game already, like scanning, enemies, for their weaknesses and descriptions and whatnot. And I think it would be cool if you had, the overworld and an interconnected, subterranean world, kind of like in Mega Man Legends.
Yeah, that would be an interesting thing to do. I mean, Metroid has already been of the whole freeform exploration from the start.
Well, in that Metroidvania kind of way, but Breath of the Wild is arguably a much different form of exploration. Like Metroidvania, you're going through a maze and slowly unlocking other areas through abilities. You're not really cut loose to anywhere you want from the get-go.
Yeah, this is true. I would like to see kind of more of... One thing I really liked in Prime 3 was seeing the non-hostile side of the galaxy. The actual other humans and interacting with people who would actually talk to Samus. So I would like to see kind of some more of that. Not necessarily have like a partner for Samus, but maybe a mission control, or maybe she goes to one of the Federation planets for some reason. That's what I would like to see. I don't know if that's going to happen, obviously. But I think that's all we got for video games. So moving on to movies we're looking forward to. And as always, we're going straight into the comic book stuff.
Yeah.
So first, let's start with the one that's coming out this week. Might actually be out by the time this thing airs. Yeah. Black Panther. Mm-hmm. He was introduced in Civil War, and everybody likes the character. He really kind of took off in that one. He just about stole the movie because it was a large part of it was his story. So it'll be interesting to see kind of a Marvel movie that is not centered in the U.S. with the U.S.-based heroes, because Black Panther is not necessarily a character that usually takes center stage. No. In other adaptations, he's been like a guest character or a sometimes member of the Avengers. So it'll be interesting to see him just directly carrying the plot. And,
it's interesting to compare him to Thor, as my girlfriend actually, pointed out to me. They're both kings, but this is the first hero we see actually act as king while he's being the hero.
Yeah, Thor kind of he runs away after the first one. Or no, well, the second one he decides he doesn't want to be king. Yeah, but he decides he doesn't want to be king, and it's not till the end of the third one that he actually takes up the role. For how long that lasts, we'll see in Infinity War. But
5 minutes.
It isn't interesting to see, because I feel like it's always the theme where the main character can't have the support structure. It's always a thing where, the Mission Impossible movies, I think only the second one is Ethan Hunt actually working for IMF. All of the others contrive some reason for him to be the lone rogue agent with a ragtag team of whoever he could scrape up. So it's interesting. It would be interesting to see the Marvel movies take on and use a character who he is a king. He has loyal bodyguards and subjects and support and all the money in the world. So it would be interesting to see, because I understand the reasons behind isolating a character like that, but it would be interesting to see the other side of it, what the character is acting like when he actually has the support structure around him. So speaking of Black Panther and Infinity War, that's coming out. Yeah, that's coming out later this year.
And
go ahead.
Yeah, I'll renew my warning, from previous. Don't hype this up too much in your heads. As I said, not every character is going to get the screen time they deserve.
Yeah, well, it's we know that going in. So after the little downer there, I'm excited for it.
Yeah,
I think it looks really good.
So am I.
I like the different combinations of characters, that they're mixing up the teams a little bit.
Oh, yeah. I'm looking forward to Tony Stark and Doctor Strange.
Yeah, I want to see them snarking at each other. Thor and the Guardians of the Galaxy should be hilarious, especially... I don't know where Loki fits in all this, because from what I've seen, Thor, the way he meets the Guardians of the Galaxy is literally they run into him. He's floating in space and they smack into him and let him on the ship. So I think that paints a bad picture for the ending of Ragnarok for those of you who have seen it.
Well,
so
I'm pretty sure they wouldn't do that just to kill every single one of them off.
Movies have done that before. I'm wondering, my prediction is like Thanos shows up, slaughters a bunch of them, and then Thor tries to stop him and gets his ass kicked.
Thrown into space.
And Loki kind of offers the cube as like a peace offering, and then Thanos buggers off to whatever else he's doing. So that would be an interesting thing to see, because he grabbed it, the way he was looking at it in that movie. Also, in the trailers literally show him offering it to somebody.
So do you think the Vision's going to make it?
It's hard to say, because there is that scene in the trailer where Thanos is basically prying the stone out of his head. And I think in the source material, Thanos kills the person who has that stone in their head by taking it out. But it'll be tough to see. I can't imagine, this is like the big final showdown. I can't imagine that nobody's going down. So it'll be interesting to see who does.
As long as it's not like the cop-out with, the Warriors 3.
Yeah, I figure whoever does go down, this is the big climax. It's Thanos. If he deigns to destroy you, that is kind of like almost a compliment.
Yeah. So, do you think Sif is going to show up anymore?
I don't know. She did. I could expect her in maybe Avengers 4. I feel like this one is kind of going to be the big names, and the 4 is going to be kind of calling in the reserves. But I've heard they're planning some kind of female-only, like, Avenger-esque movie. But that's going to be headlined by the Valkyrie character from Ragnarok, who kind of played the Sif role in that. So I don't know what's going to happen with Sif. I don't think she's been written out completely, but there's got to be some room for her. I could see her becoming like a regular on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I would like to see that. I think that would be a good place for the character because she's shown up a couple times already. And she is like super powered, but she's not Thor level super powered. So you could believably do it on, network TV.
Yeah, and well, I know the actress has said, if I have the time, I'll definitely do it because who doesn't want to be a superhero?
Yeah.
But it was filming conflicts that kind of screwed her over.
She had a TV show.
Yeah.
So, okay. So other Avengers on the slate, AntMan and the Wasp, the trailer.
I guess they'll make it.
Well, I'm not sure where this is taking place because I think it's like right after Civil War. Marvel released a comic to kind of explain what's going on after Civil War. And among those things, apparently the Scarlet Witch, Hawkeye, and Scott Lang, they basically just get released back. They just basically go back home.
Well, all that for...
Yeah, I guess like it's like the whole nature of them being caught. If they retire, it's fine. But part of the premise of Ant-Man and the Wasp is that Hank Pym and them are on the run because of what Scott did. So I guess he's not entirely off the hook. So it seems like it's going to be like a caper chase kind of thing. So that should be fun. The trailer has shown a bit of humor. Like there's a car chase where someone, she enlarges a Pez dispenser to throw at people. Hank Pym shrinks an office building and rolls away with it like a suitcase. So I think it's going to be fun like the first one. I hope it is as fun as the first one. So that one I think it's got high hopes. And another one that's probably further on the horizon, the Captain Marvel movie.
Isn't that in 2019?
Possibly, but close enough.
We're very thorough here at the C Team.
They released some images of it where she's basically wearing the Captain Marvel uniform except it's blue instead of red, black, and gold. But the reason for that is she gets her powers from the alien Kree, and they're blue. So it's more of she's probably wearing one of their uniforms to start with. And they might actually be merging her story with the original Captain Marvel, whose name was Marvel, who was an alien. So it might...
Nice job, Marvel.
Yeah. They needed to keep the copyright. They didn't need to make it good.
Yeah, wasn't there like a whole kerfuffle on that?
Yeah, that's a whole thing. But anyway, so they might be merging her story with his, where she actually is a Kree, an alien. So that's why she's wearing the alien uniform. And this one's also special because it's going to be the first movie headlined by a female character in the Marvel movies. And that's the one thing DC beat them to the punch on.
Yeah.
Is having Wonder Woman. And people have been clamoring for a Black Widow movie for years. So I think they did announce some details on the Black Widow movie, and that's the one that might turn out to be the female Avengers movie.
Though I would say, like Hulk, I think I like Black Widow as a supporting character.
Yeah, well, I think a solo movie for her might have worked better earlier in the timeline, where it could have been just like a straight espionage movie, where the character's kind of grown beyond those roots at this point in the movies.
Yeah.
Oh, that's the other thing about the Captain Marvel movie. It takes place in the 90s.
Oh, does it?
Yeah. And she's up against the Skrulls, who are shape-shifting aliens, so there's probably going to be a bit of secret invasion in there.
Didn't Marvel not have the copyright to the Skrulls before?
Yeah, but then Disney went and bought Fox. So that's all been taken care of.
Oh, God.
So Marvel,
Mine now.
Marvel does have the rights to basically all of its own characters except Spider-Man at this point, which is still kind of tied up with Sony, but they have a deal with them. So they've been talking. We might yet see the X-Men show up in the MCU, which I'm kind of on the fence about. I love the X-Men, but I feel like they work better in their own world.
Yeah, I'm basically for that. We already have a hell of a roster, and as I said, just balancing out budget and screen time and all of that. Like, why do we need the X-Men at this point? And the whole moral of their story, I feel, doesn't really apply here. Yeah,
it's a little tricky to reconcile the X-Men with everything else going on. Although apparently Hugh Jackman wanted to cameo in the first Avenger as just show up in the background in World War II.
Cigar in mouth, just like...
Yeah, I could have gotten behind that, because that's the thing they've done before. Earth's Mightiest Heroes, he just shows up as James Howlett in the Howling Commandos. So speaking of Fox, they have Deadpool 2 coming out, where
I just want to point out, I love how we have the MCU and then other Marvel.
Well, yeah, because it's kind of a different set to it.
Yeah.
So Deadpool 2, I think it's off to a good start. They've launched similar marketing to the first one.
So give Ryan Reynolds a camera and hope for the best?
Yeah, basically. They have Josh Brolin, I believe, is playing Cable. He's also playing Thanos, and I really hope Deadpool makes a joke about that.
Just see them just chew each other out.
Yeah, I think it's going to be fun. I am very interested to see where it's going, and I like Deadpool as a character, and I think the movie got him just right.
Yeah. It was a surprise hit, considering the uphill battle Ryan Reynolds had to get that
go
movie
through
going.
Hell and back to get that thing off the ground floor.
Because Ryan Reynolds, like him or not, has had a rocky career when it comes to comic book films.
Yeah. I don't think it's his fault. I think he's got such enthusiasm for the comic books that he will jump on things that he probably shouldn't.
Yeah. Well, I think with Origins, it was against his will.
Yeah, he got angled into that.
He was basically like, they basically held Deadpool hostage to get him to be in that movie. And as Nostalgia Critic once called him, discussing Deadpool in retrospect, Ryan Reynolds really was the kiss of death to whatever comic book.
I don't think it's his fault, though.
No, it isn't. He's just cursed. He's like Terry Gilliam.
He just ended up with scripts that just were not very good. There was a lot of problems with X-Men Origins that had nothing to do with Ryan Reynolds.
Yeah.
Same with Blade Trinity and Green Lantern. Green Lantern, I think, gets a lot of flack. It's not as bad as it's held to be, but it was not great.
Yeah, and I've watched it several times, and really, the more you watch it, the more the cracks kind of show.
Yeah.
And
he's kind of playing Hal Jordan more like Wade Wilson than he is like Hal Jordan.
To demonstrate who he actually wants to play.
Yeah,
actually, to demonstrate, one thing I realize does not get revisited, that nephew he meets at the beginning.
Yeah, they just kind of forget about him.
Yeah, I kind of felt like they were just trying to throw character traits at him, see what sticks, and like half of it did.
Yeah, you'd think that kid would have ended up being mentioned again, but in fact, I forgot he existed until Frank mentioned him 10 seconds ago.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's kind of remarkable.
Yeah. All right, so moving on to well, this is kind of the MCU with Venom because it's the same. I've heard rumors that Tom Holland's Spider-Man is going to show up in it because it is with the same set of characters. So I don't know where they're going to take it. Whether it's going to be more like the Ultimate version, where it's a terrestrial thing, but if it's the MCU, I mean, aliens are a thing there. Yeah. So I'm wondering if maybe it'll be like a result of Infinity War. Maybe something dropped by one of Thanos' forces.
He hitchhiked.
Yeah. But because in the original, the Venom symbiote came from the Secret Wars, where Spider-Man was on an alien planet and he poked the wrong thing and caused untold amounts of trouble for himself for years, which is kind of the thing Peter Parker does as a hobby.
Yeah, he's just a doom magnet, as I've heard.
Yeah, except for Doctor Doom doesn't like him too much.
Yeah. But they always find each other, don't they?
Yeah. So Tom Hardy is playing Eddie Brock.
Oh, right.
Yeah, Bane.
Mad Max.
That too. So he's no stranger to comic book movies with strange mouth things. The one screenshot I've seen shows Eddie Brock in prison, so that's probably going to be it's probably going to be a bit darker than, say, Spider-Man Homecoming was, if it's focusing on Eddie Brock.
Well, in all fairness, Homecoming was pretty lighthearted, even as far as like Marvel goes.
Yeah, it was a very lighthearted movie, which worked for it.
Yeah.
Venom is not a lighthearted character. He's weird and goofy, but he's also murderous. Well,
well, another thing I just realized, Spider-Man is almost going through like the DCE or whatever Superman, very late to the party, despite the fact that he's the main like hero of
the flagship hero.
Yeah, he is the flagship hero. So Spider-Man has gone on 2 adventures. One of them was successful as far as from his perspective, and now Thanos.
Yeah, he's kind of punching up above his weight class here. Yeah. But we can talk about that when the movie comes out or we see more of it. We have not really seen much of Venom. I haven't seen much of X-Men Dark Phoenix either, but I've heard a lot about it. As the movies have been doing, it jumps ahead about a decade, although this one, I like the touch. It's in the other movies were 63, 73, 83. This one's 92. Which is the year that the animated series started, and the Phoenix was a big central storyline there. So I want to see a bunch of references to that. I that's what I'm kind of hoping for, that they do revisit a lot of that era, which had a lot of the same lineup that they have by the end of the movie. Scott and Jean, and Storm, and a few others that may or may not show up.
Well, I just hope it does better than X-Men 3.
Yeah, they already had the third one in this series, kind of, with Apocalypse, so they're over that hump.
Yeah.
And questions on this. The premise is that, basically, actually in a turnaround to what we were just talking about, the X-Men, their storyline, the X-Men at this point, thanks to saving the world from Apocalypse, are well-renowned, famous, well-loved heroes. Which is a huge turnaround because the X-Men are usually at best barely tolerated by people.
Well, it's like the Marvel thing, how popular Tony Stark is.
Yeah. So, but in the sense, what happens is this goes to Professor Xavier's head, and he ends up sending them on the mission to save the space shuttle, which ends up with Jean infected by taking on the Phoenix Force. Which is a little weird because they kind of implied she already had it. So maybe it's going to be a thing where she loses control of it. But I'm wondering how much they're going to bring in things like the Shi'ar and the alien aspects to it. Because that's been a central part of it. I mean, she's probably going to die, but she's the Phoenix, so she might come back. Probably will come back. That's kind of Jean Grey's whole thing.
Yeah, make Cyclops cry for a couple seasons and come back.
But this is kind of their chance to do it right. As you mentioned before, X-Men 3... did not do Dark Phoenix right. Part of that had to do with the actor for Cyclops jumping ship to the Superman movie, which did not pan out for anybody involved. So hopefully they do it right. I mean, Bryan Singer's still attached to it, and he's had the best luck with X-Men movies.
Yeah.
By best luck, I mean he just knows the characters and everything better.
Yeah. So, who's in charge of X-Men now? Fox.
Fox has it, but Disney owns Fox. So they're all one big happy family now.
Yeah.
One big happy monopoly.
Yeah.
Complete with top hat and monocle and mustache.
Just sell all to Bryan Singer and we'll all be happy.
Yeah, I mean, he knows how to do X-Men right. So we'll see how that goes. And
also, one quick thing. What do you think of the whole, like, no one aging, really?
I haven't really thought about it. I mean, really, to an extent, 10 years is not... It depends on the age of the people. Like, I don't think I look too different now than when I was 22, necessarily. So I can kind of believe that in some cases. And I think they're probably going with the conceit that mutant powers, like, help you with aging. And they're going to... They did... Apocalypse had some token nods to... makeup. Like Moira Taggart has like a little bit of gray in her hair if you squint. But I kind of like the idea that they're jumping across with it. It's almost like a reference to the comic books themselves, where Professor X and Magneto and like they were adults in the 60s and now they're 30-something adults now, everybody.
Yeah.
So I can kind of see it. It's almost a meta reference to that. So I don't mind it too much.
So, the DCEU, Aquaman.
I haven't really seen much of this yet, but I really liked Aquaman in Justice League. I love Jason Momoa. He's a very fun actor. He clearly has a good time playing the character.
Yeah.
I've seen some of the behind-the-scenes stuff. He's having a blast. So that's... I think it would be cool. I think it's going to be... I hope it will be the DCEU's answer to Thor, because it's kind of that similar storyline where he's a reluctant king to take the throne. And that's kind of what they allude to in Justice League, where he shows up and he asks for the trident, for the armor, and the answer is, yeah, we'll give this to you, but you have responsibilities here afterward. So it's going to be interesting to see. I'm looking forward to it, as much as I am for anything in the DCEU. Which is actually, I think I'm looking forward to most of the DCEU stuff more than most people.
Yeah, well, on a personal note, I actually really enjoyed Justice League.
Yeah, me too.
And I felt it got way too much hate for what it was. I think people were expecting Revolution despite everything that was going on.
No, I think they were expecting it to be utter crap, and when it wasn't quite utter crap, they still treated it like utter crap.
Yeah, which is...
It's a little unfair.
Yeah, that was really unfair. And I'm hoping that they don't see that reaction and say pull the plug, even though I would have said
no. They're not going to pull the plug. It made its money back.
Yeah.
So, on to other non-DC and non-Marvel superheroes. They're finally coming out with The Incredibles 2.
The best Watchmen film ever made.
It really was. It hit all those... It's the best Watchmen film and the best Fantastic Four movie.
Yeah.
It's the best of like two completely different movies, but it's... Watchmen was just a fantastic movie. It should be the template for a superhero family done right.
Yeah.
And there was a brief teaser that we've seen.
Yeah.
That I don't know that that's even going to be part of the movie. I wouldn't mind seeing like a time skip to where like the kids are grown up, but I think the family dynamic also works. So I don't know. I have high hopes for it. Pixar generally makes great movies, the whole Cars series notwithstanding.
Yeah.
But I have faith in them.
Yeah, and... Yeah, especially with the trailer. Didn't they already know Jack had powers?
They did.
Yeah.
The trailer, it wasn't him finding out so much as celebrating it. Because they find out at the end of the movie. And like I said, I don't think the trailer is going to strictly be part of the movie. Because a lot of times Pixar does that. They will have a teaser trailer that just kind of captures the spirit of the characters without actually being part of the actual movie.
Well,
so I wouldn't nitpick too much into that exchange.
Yeah. I imagine there is going to be a bit of a time skip, especially if they're even thinking about getting the same voice actors as last time. The guy who did Dash, he was a kid.
Yeah,
But,
so
he was a legitimate kid.
I could see them doing that. You're right. Jumping ahead at least a couple years past puberty, so the voice can still fit. If they use the same voices, they might not. But so yeah, I think that one looks good. I'm actually more excited for that than most of the other comic book movies that we've talked about.
Yeah.
So, and kind of the last one on our slate here, Solo: A Star Wars Story.
Yeah.
Did you get a chance to watch the trailer?
I watched the trailer during the Super Bowl.
No, there was another one that was out today.
What'd you think of it?
Here's the thing: the trailer during the Super Bowl was kind of like dark and almost dour, made it look very dramatic. The trailer that's out looks like it has it had a more of the humor of the character, and it looked like it was more fun. It seems to me that like the Woody Harrelson character is recruiting Han Solo and Chewbacca and a bunch of other characters. He says he's putting together a crew. I think it's going to be some kind of heist or caper or something. That's the sense I got from it. Lando's in it, and he's as much a scoundrel as Han Solo is. And there was one shot, it looked like a young Maz from The Force Awakens. So I think I like the trailer more than the commercial, because the commercial tried to play it up as dark and mysterious. The commercial kind of goes more, like I said, more into the humor.
Well,
So-
that's good to hear, because I wouldn't want this to be a dramatic, heroic moment when all that development already takes place later on. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think Han Solo the character's always had like a bit of a heart of gold. It's been buried very deep, and he kind of has to grow into it. But I would not object to him being like a generally good guy. But yeah, he's someone who looks out for himself. I could see it like not necessarily a heroic save the universe thing, but a heroic, save the part.
Lando, maybe.
Yeah, save Lando when he doesn't have to, or something like that. I could see that kind of moment showing that he's a decent guy in this world. And the trailer mentions some bits of his backstory that have been there for a while. That he was in the Imperial Academy before he got kicked out. In his words, it's for having an opinion. Probably also has to do with crashing something or decking somebody, because this is Han Solo. He's outspoken in that way, too. And there's, it looks like, to me, it's going to be kind of like almost a space western. That's the sense I got from the trailer, that there's going to be, chase scenes, he's going to be running away from people, trying to steal or smuggle things.
Maybe it'll be the next Firefly.
Yeah. Maybe, because, Malcolm Reynolds had a bit of Han Solo in him.
Yeah. He shot first.
Yeah, he shot first.
Well,
and
actually,
often.
that initial meeting, apparently, the other person shot first, but he decided to shoot first in the next meeting. It was her turn.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, I think it's got potential. Like I've said before, I don't want it to go through the whole backstory.
Yeah.
I think there are certain elements you're going to have to set up, like the Imperial Academy thing, meeting Chewbacca, and the Falcon is in it. I hope it does not do the same thing that First Class did for the X-Men. I would prefer a movie where maybe it ends where he doesn't have the Falcon yet, and he's never heard of the Kessel Run yet, where there are still more stories to tell. Because I feel like if they do everything in this one, that's going to be rushing through it. Han Solo as a character, it makes more sense if he's had these adventures over years and years, not that everything we've heard about him happens over the same week and a half. So that's where I stand with it. I've heard, complaints that he doesn't sound like Harrison Ford. Well, no, he's a different person.
Yeah, and younger.
Yeah, so
presumably.
So I think that looks good. I'm looking forward to it. That's going to be a summer movie. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So music, you can take this one because I don't really have anything to say about it.
Okay, so one of my favorite bands, Camelot, with a K.
Camelot.
It's a weird model. So yeah, they're a symphonic metal band. They started, very fantasy-esque, but then, proceeded to the more, symphonic, style, which, popular in Europe. Started in the States, actually, I think in Florida. and they're set to release the Shadow Theory in April, and yeah, it's supposed to be a direct follow-up to their previous one, not just obviously came out after that one, but thematic wise, which has a lot to do with psychological torment. That'll be fun, and the last time they did a 2-part basically concept-ish kind of album was Epica and Black Halo, where it was about Faust.
Fun guy, Faust.
Yeah, and that was a lot of fun to listen to, and I hope I hope the best for them, and that's really all I got to say on that, because we have another long subject to look at.
Well, we're getting through it. I think we can tackle this in 1 minute. Go ahead.
And Castlevania is going to be awesome. So, Castlevania. I watched the Netflix season 1 last year. Very much enjoyed it, and they picked. I should probably just properly introduce Castlevania. It's basically about a guy with a whip.
I think people know what Castlevania is, Frank.
A guy with a whip by the name of Belmont kills Dracula while Dracula goes on about piles of secrets and stuff. So the basic plot is basically Castlevania 3. And the funny thing is, for years, that's always the one I think I've always said they should make a movie out of. Because, it introduces a lot of staples. It's kind of like Mega Man 3. It introduces a lot of staples to the series. For one, it's not just the Belmont. We have Trevor Belmont, but we also have, the sorceress, Sifa Belnades, another, staple, family in the series. And, of course, Alucard, the son of Dracula. So the first season was kind of like an extended pilot introduction to all the characters, basically setting up, Castlevania 3. So far, the only character they don't have from that specific game yet is Grant, who is like a pirate character who, basically like everyone else in the world, wants revenge against Dracula. But I imagine he'll show up later. Anime style, but from a Western studio. And yeah, very solid adaptation, so far. I like the characters. Another good thing about having this one in particular is we go into Alucard's backstory. And I like how they portray his mother, who is basically a medicine woman with just the biggest amount of balls, because she wants more science, so she heard Dracula's castle has more science, so she goes there.
Yay, science.
And so Dracula kind of tries to intimidate her, but all she says is, "You didn't ask to take my coat." and just kind of proceeds in, and Dracula just kind of gives this nod of approval. It's like, I like her. And they also go into, Dracula when he's not invading humanity. And it seems to be implied that he just kind of wants to leave everyone alone. He just kind of wants to, stay in his own misery for the most part. Have enough impaled bodies in his front yard to keep people away.
Well, he is the Vlad the Impaler, so he's got there's a certain image you have to go with there.
So part of the backstory is him just kind of walking around the countryside, just, milling about. Not really enjoying himself, just looking at the world. And then his wife, of course, gets accused of a witch, and Dracula invades, and one of the bloodiest things I've ever seen in anything.
Yeah, that's the thing. Castlevania is a surprisingly hard R.
Yeah,
for the source material.
Yeah, because the thing is, I always saw it more like the Van Helsing movie with Hugh Jackman than
more of a PG-13-esque adventure than everything dripping with blood. Although with vampires, you got to expect a certain amount of blood.
Yeah, I mean, in all fairness, this is one of the few times we actually see Dracula invade a town.
Yeah, usually in the games, he's just in his castle, and you're home invading his castle.
Yeah, basically going, come at me, bro. And the only glimpse we get is in Richter's game where the first level is in a burning village. But even that's pretty tame.
Yeah, it's fire. It's not blood.
Yeah. It implies a lot of blood, but...
yeah, it doesn't show it necessarily.
So that was greenlit for second season, and people are hoping it's going to be around, of course, Halloween.
Yeah, that would make the most sense.
No, I'm hoping it comes, sooner than that. Yeah, myself. So, yeah, and it's one of the only shows I've really invested in the last few years. It just goes to show, like, what you really need to do to...
Yeah, it's a good use of the animated medium for a mature thing.
Yeah.
So, it's a cartoon, but it's not a kid's cartoon, not by any stretch of the imagination. And I think we need more of that in general to show that you can use that medium for something that has mature storytelling.
Yeah. Well, they do kind of overdo it, but still, it's the M rating that I respect. They treat us like adults and not like teenagers thirsting for blood. Witcher 3 is also kind of like that, where it's like, yeah, there's nudity, yeah, there's blood, but it's not like in your face, really. Yeah. It's part of life. And so, and that's the kind of R I personally like.
Yeah, where it's not like exploitative. It's just part of the realistic setting.
But yeah, don't watch that show. You haven't watched that show, right?
No.
Don't watch it right after you've eaten something.
Good to know.
It gets rough.
Okay. Now on to a bit more lighthearted and British. These shows, Good Omens is actually slated for 2019, but I'm going to talk about it anyway because it's one of my favorite books. And it's based on a collaboration between Neil Gaiman and the late, great Sir Terry Pratchett. Yeah. And it's the funniest book about the apocalypse I've ever read.
Yeah, going for a more lighthearted touch, as we just said.
Yeah, it's the BBC is making a miniseries of it, and Neil Gaiman is directly involved. He's been tweeting about it all the time. And I'm excited for it. Like I said, it's one of my favorite books ever. And the BBC, they make some pretty good stuff. So I think they can treat it right. There is a quintessential Britishness about the book, so I think it needs to be British. And I'm excited to see what they do with it. And the other British one, speaking of Sir Terry Pratchett, is The Watch, which is based on the Ankh-Morpork City Watch from the Discworld books, which is kind of like a police procedural in a very strange fantasy world. There are dwarves and vampires and trolls and gargoyles and gnomes and one Nobby Nobbs on...
Yeah, whatever he is.
Yeah. So I guess they're going to have to use CG for the trolls and possibly for Nobby Nobbs. I first heard it was in production a couple years ago. There has not really been much said about it since. It's actually helmed by Rihanna Pratchett, who is Terry Pratchett's daughter, and who is a writer for several video games.
Which ones?
She was on the Tomb Raider team for a while.
Oh.
I'm not sure what she's been doing lately, but she is still active in that. And she is kind of the head of Terry Pratchett's creative properties right now. She tweeted something a couple weeks ago about the production company involved with the watch, saying that they haven't announced anything yet. So I think we're probably going to hear something soon. And I think that could be a very interesting thing. I don't know if they're going to adapt the books themselves, or maybe do like an on the ground level thing with more of the non-Vimes characters. So I'm very interested to see where that goes. And that's kind of all the other shows that are coming out this year. There's no real new shows I'm looking forward to. I'm watching The Walking Dead, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. That's about it.
So what do you think? Is Carl going to make it?
Probably not. They're treating it like it's an ending for him, and I can't see a way for him to survive without them breaking their own rules. Well, so I think, and the actor's going to college. So I think I am going to go 70-30 that it is the end for Carl. Otherwise, I could also see them BSing something. Well, you never know.
In all fairness, it's not like a wizard came down and said these are the rules. In a way, isn't the cast still like kind of figuring it out?
No. There are some hard and fast rules. You get bit, you die, and everybody is infected with it. And Carl was bitten on a place you can't chop off. So,
Where was he bit?
Like on the side, like where like around the ribs. So I
That's
think
one kidney.
no, it's this front. But yeah, it looks like it's curtains for him. So unless they're going to pull something totally unexpected out of the hat, I think that is it. So anyway, any final thoughts on the start of 2018?
Adventures of Link. Come on, Nintendo. You know you want to.
For a second, I thought you said Avengers of Link.
That would be cool too. But Adventures of Link.
Just Iron Man shows up in the middle of Hyrule.
Excuse me.
Okay, I think we've been going for more than an hour. I think we're done.
Yeah.
I'm Mike Curley.
And this is Frank Curley.
This is the C Team.
Bye.
All right. Dun, dun,